Hello there, YouTube. I'm here in this video to talk to you about a game that I'm making. Um, it's a game that has kind of been in the works in my mind for a little while now, but I'm finally taking more and more steps toward it, actually becoming, a real playable, at least test playable, game to play, because I think it's a pretty fun concept. Essentially, the idea is that I really like a little hobby of mine back for a while back now has been kind of creating rules for various games in order to make them strip versions of those games. Like the idea of strip poker, except, strip flux or strip Monopoly or strip whatever. Um, and so that, was kind of fun. But I eventually started thinking, why not just make a whole game, simply designed around that? Um, and, that started turning around in my head, and some ideas came up, and then I thought about the possibility of including other things in there as well. Drinking, for instance, because there are a lot of good drinking games, and almost any regular game can also be made into a drinking game. You could have poker, the drinking game, Monopoly, the drinking game. Um, Same basic idea. It just involves putting in some element that causes the players to drink at a certain time, rather than an element that causes the players to take off clothing at a certain time. Um, so I kind but essentially the idea is that it's a fun card game based on a party of adventurers, a mage, a thief, a barbarian, and a cleric who have come back from an adventure and are hanging around at the inn. And the goal is to either knock all of your opponents out, well, to get them out of the game somehow. And you can either do that by knocking them out or um, getting all of their money away from them. And of course, the money is mostly done with gambling and occasionally stealing in various ways. Um, but the knocking them out is done with a combination of drinking and causing damage. And you start out with a fortitude at 20 and an alcohol content at 0, and the two are on the same meter, and when they meet, you're knocked out. So you could be knocked out from like lots and lots of damage and only a little alcohol, or lots and lots of alcohol and only a little damage. It's just wherever they happen to meet at the same number, you're out. So I had come up with a concept for this. I was thinking about it and, thinking, well, what if you drank every time that you drank in the game, and you took off clothing whenever you took damage in the game? That would totally work for that game. But then I got thinking also about the gambling element of it, and how you could also use real money for the gambling part and just throw another vice in there. And it was thinking about that suddenly got me thinking about all three of those things together, and putting them into my completely independent game. Um, so including those three vices in the basic game brought about the name of the game, which is Dristriga. DRI for drinking, STRI for strip, and GA for gambling. Dristriga. So the idea is basically, I haven't come up with, some of the specifics of the rules, but the basic idea is you're either in or out of each of the three elements of the game. And for each element you're in, you have a couple of cards from that deck. Each element, stripping and such, will have its own deck. And so at the beginning of the game, assuming everyone is in for all of the elements, you draw two cards from each deck and have a hand of 6 cards. Now you can only play a card against someone who's in for that element. So for instance, once someone no longer has any strip cards because they don't want to be, taking off any more clothing, you can't play a strip card against them anymore. But they obviously also can't play it against other people. And of course there'll be mandatory ways to get knocked out of an element, like if all of your clothing is gone, then you're obviously automatically out with stripping. The drinking is a little bit trickier, and I might have to put rules in there, limiting, probably having everyone else vote on when someone has had enough, and, just mandatory you're out of that for now, because otherwise it could get a little bit too, people could stay in too long, and that could get dangerous. But the other two, when you run out of money or run out of clothing, then, that's an obvious limiting factor where you're just, done with that portion of the game. And so anyway, playing a card against someone is actually a mini game. So for instance, you might play, from the strip deck, the, Texas Hold'em poker. And the person you play it against and you will play a single hand of Texas Hold'em poker, and whoever loses will be the person who takes off an article of clothing. And, I'm going to have games, mostly card games, dice games, and games that don't involve, any kind of outside elements, like a staring contest, for instance, would fall into that third category. And my current plan, although I haven't come up with all the games yet, so I don't know if I'll alter this, is to have 16 of each type, card, dice, and neither, for a total of 48 different mini games. And so there will be 48 cards in each deck, with one of each of the mini games. I think it's a pretty fun concept. A lot of the games will be purely chance. Like, most poker games are really pure luck, or very close to it if you aren't playing with gambling. Most of the strategy in poker is all in the gambling and bluffing and stuff like that. So without, incremental gambling and such in it, there, isn't that much skill involved. Even for the gambling section, it'll just be like, both players put in some money, you play the mini game, and then whoever wins it gets the money. You won't get to choose how much money you put in or anything like that. That'll all be preset. So the strategy there of bluffing and all that won't really come into play. But the strategy of it will mostly involve the few games that do involve some amount of skill, such as, the staring contest or thumb wrestling or something like that. That, if you use those strategically and figure out, which other players are good at them and play those against them, and also deciding, which elements of the game someone is going to be easily knocked out of. Like, if you know that someone, isn't willing to take off, that much clothing, then you can play strip cards against them, hoping to get them out of that part of the game. So, there'll definitely be some strategy involved. It won't be, purely chance at all. And at the same time, it should be a really fun game for adults to play. Obviously, an adult game. So I am rapidly approaching 10 minutes. I think I'm at like 9. So I'm going to finish this now. I'll let you know as things progress with that, and I might be able to send out some files and let you know what you need to play, for you to try it out, if anyone wants to try it. That's about all for now. Probably going to make some more videos. I've got a few planned. So I will talk to you again shortly. Bye.